The routine emergency drill aboard the Interspecies Research Station, Harmony, was supposed to be a simple exercise simulated hull breach in Section 7 to test evacuation protocols. Located in the Kepler 442 system, the station orbited a gas giant whose methane storms created spectacular light shows that reminded the crew why they'd chosen this remote posting. Unlike the sterile military outposts or crowded trade hubs, Harmony represented something hopeful, genuine cooperation between species who had only recently discovered they weren't alone in the universe. For the Velfani crew members, with their prey animal heritage, the drill meant immediate flight to designated safe zones. Their long ears twitched at the slightest sound, and their large eyes constantly scanned for threats. The Krolix, descended from burrowing creatures, would instinctively seek the deepest interior compartments, their chitinous shells clicking against the bulkheads as they scrambled through maintenance tunnels. Bavetian bird-like species would cluster together in elevated positions, their stress pheromones creating visible clouds of anxiety that shimmered like heat waves, all perfectly normal, predictable fear responses that had been refined over millions of years of evolution. Each species had developed these reactions because their ancestors who fled fastest, hid deepest, or grouped tightest were the ones who survived to pass on their genes. Then there were the humans. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist from Snow Hollow, was in the middle of feeding the station's biosamples when the alarm started. The containment lab housed specimens from dozens of worlds, each requiring precise environmental controls and feeding schedules. Instead of evacuating, she calmly continued her work, muttering about how the specimens would die if she didn't finish. The Altarian moss polyps only eat every 72 hours, she explained to the empty lab, carefully measuring nutrients into their tank. Missing this feeding could set back the research by weeks. When the automated systems began sealing emergency bulkheads, she actually moved toward the simulated breach to make sure everyone got out okay. Her colleagues watched through security feeds as she pressed her face against the viewport, studying the supposed damage with scientific curiosity rather than terror. Chief Engineer Tom Rodriguez heard the hull breach alarm and immediately started heading toward the danger zone with a toolkit, asking the computer what needed to be fixed. A former oil rig worker from Texas, he'd spent years dealing with high-pressure blowouts and equipment failures in conditions that would kill most humans. To him, an emergency wasn't something to flee from, it was a problem to solve. Security. Officer Yuki Tanaka began doing a room-by-room search for stragglers, moving methodically through areas that other species were fleeing in terror. Her training as a search and rescue specialist in the Japanese Alps had taught her that emergencies were when people needed help most, not when you abandoned them. The alien crew watched in growing horror as the humans treated a life-threatening emergency like a mild inconvenience. Asterisk Station Commander Kethvar, a Velfani whose silver fur was now standing on end with stress, watched the security feeds with growing disbelief. His prey animal instincts screamed at him to flee to the deepest, most secure part of the station, but his command responsibilities kept him rooted to the bridge. The conflict between duty and instinct was tearing him apart, causing his ears to twitch frantically and his breathing to become rapid and shallow. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Vex Thul, the station's Krolix psychologist, her compound eyes reflecting the alarm lights in a kaleidoscope of red warnings. "Fear is the most fundamental survival mechanism. Every sapient species we've encountered has it. Even the Vorthik, who are apex predators on their homeworld, flee from danger until they can assess and plan." On the security monitors, they watched Elena Vasquez calmly explaining to a terrified Vishan researcher that the biosamples would contaminate the evacuation zones if not properly secured. The Vishan, whose feathers were literally molting from stress, could barely comprehend what the human was saying. To him, staying near a hull breach to worry about laboratory Specimens was like voluntarily remaining in a burning building to water plants. Tom Rodriguez had reached the simulated breach site and was running diagnostics on the emergency systems. His movements were purposeful and calm, occasionally pausing to help other crew members who were struggling with the evacuation procedures. When a young Krolix engineer got caught in a maintenance hatch, panicking and scraping his shell against the metal, Tom gently guided him free while simultaneously checking the atmospheric readings. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Keshmore, the Veshan communications officer, his voice high with stress-induced harmonics, "the human security officer is requesting permission to override the evacuation protocols. She wants to do a final sweep of the affected sections." Keffar's whiskers twitched in confusion. "A final sweep? During a hull breach?" "She says it's standard operating procedure to ensure no one gets left behind," Keshmore replied, his feathers ruffling with bewilderment. Situation became more surreal when the humans began coordinating with each other. Elena contacted Tom about temporary atmospheric containment for the lab specimens. Tom radioed Yuki about structural integrity in the evacuation routes. Yuki checked with Elena about any crew members who might have been in the affected biological research areas. They were forming an impromptu emergency response network, while everyone else was following evacuation procedures. Dr. Vexthil's carapace was clicking, rapidly a sign of extreme agitation among her people. "Commander, this behavior is beyond anomalous. It's actively dangerous. They're not just ignoring their survival instincts, they're overriding them completely." What truly disturbed the alien crew was how competent the humans appeared. This wasn't reckless bravado or panic-induced confusion. They were calm, methodical, and efficient. They were treating the emergency as if moving toward danger was the natural, logical response. Kethvar realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. A species that didn't just tolerate danger, they moved toward it. 23 minutes. Into the drill, the station's quantum resonance detector began emitting a sound that none of them had heard before, a deep, thrumming vibration that seemed to emanate from the very structure of space-time itself. The artificial gravity fluctuated, causing loose objects to dance momentarily in the air before crashing back down. Emergency lighting flickered as power systems strained against an unknown force. "Commander," Lieutenant Keshmore's voice cracked with genuine terror, "this isn't the drill anymore. We're detecting massive gravitational anomalies in the system. Something's coming through hyperspace, something big." The main view screen activated, showing the swirling methane storms of the gas giant below. But something was wrong. The storms were being pulled into unnatural patterns, creating a spiraling vortex that seemed to be growing larger by the second. Space itself appeared to be warping around an invisible mass. "All crew, this is Commander Kethvar," he announced, his voice struggling to remain steady. "We are experiencing an actual emergency. Unknown gravitational forces are affecting our orbital stability. All personnel must immediately." The transmission cut off as the station shuddered violently. Hull plates groaned under stress they weren't designed to handle. In the distance, a low-frequency hum began to build, growing steadily. Louder and more ominous, the alien crew's responses were immediate and instinctive. The Velfani scattered to emergency bunkers, their ears flat against their heads. The Krolix burrowed deeper into the station's interior, some actually tearing through deck plating to reach the central core. The Veshans huddled together in the highest observation decks, their stress pheromones now so thick they were visible as shimmering clouds. But the humans' behavior became even more bewildering. Elena Vasquez was now in the main laboratory, rapidly documenting the gravitational effects on her specimens. "This is incredible," she muttered, recording data even as the station bucked around her. "The cellular structures are responding to the gravitational stress in ways we've never observed." we might be seeing the first evidence of how life adapts to variable space-time conditions. Tom Rodriguez had abandoned the drill entirely and was racing toward the engineering section, calling out to his automated systems. "Computer, I need structural integrity reports on all external hull sections. Cross-reference with gravitational stress patterns and show me where we are most vulnerable." Yuki Tanaka was coordinating with the bridge, trying to establish communication with crew members who were too terrified to respond to normal channels. "Commander, I'm reading life signs in 17 different emergency shelters. Everyone's accounted for, but most are too scared to acknowledge communications." The humans weren't just failing to flee, they were actively engaging with the crisis. While every other species on the station was following millions of years of evolutionary programming that screamed, "Hide and survive," the humans were trying to understand, adapt, and help others. Dr. Vexthal, speaking from deep within the station's core, transmitted a message that would later be studied by xenopsychologists across the galaxy. They're not broken. They're not malfunctioning. This is how they're supposed to work. Part 4. Deathworld Evolution. The gravitational anomaly was growing stronger, and the station's structural integrity warnings were becoming more urgent. Through the chaos, Dr. Vexthal found herself compelled to analyze what she was witnessing. From her deep shelter in the station's core, she accessed the humans' personnel files and began cross-referencing their behavior with their evolutionary history. Earth, she discovered, wasn't just a dangerous world, it was a death trap that had somehow produced intelligent life. The planetary records showed a world with unstable tectonics, extreme weather systems, mass extinction events every few million years, and predators that hunted in packs. The atmosphere itself had been poisoned to most life forms for billions of years. Yet somehow, humans had not only survived, but thrived. They evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill them, she transmitted to Commander Kethvar. Their ancestors weren't just prey animals or predators, they were survivors of continuous catastrophe. When their environment became dangerous, they didn't develop better flight responses. They developed better problem-solving abilities. On the security feeds, Elena was now in direct communication with the station's computer, trying to understand how the gravitational anomaly was affecting the life support systems. She wasn't thinking about her own safety. She was thinking about how to keep everyone else alive. Tom had reached the engineering section and was manually rerouting power to the structural integrity fields. His hands moved with practiced efficiency across control panels, making adjustments that the automated systems couldn't compute fast enough. He was essentially performing surgery on a starship while it was being torn apart by forces that bent space-time itself. YUK, I had established emergency communication protocols with the alien crew members, creating a network that allowed them to coordinate without leaving their shelters. She was acting as a bridge between the humans who were trying to solve the crisis and the aliens who were trying to survive it. "Look at their stress responses," Dr. Vexthal continued, her analysis becoming more urgent. "When we encounter danger, our bodies prepare us to flee. Increased heart rate, enhanced sensory perception, muscle tension for running. But humans... Their stress responses prepare them to fight or to think. Their adrenaline doesn't just make them faster, it makes them more focused, more creative, more capable of complex problem-solving under pressure." The station shuddered again, and the gravitational readings spiked. Whatever was coming through, hyperspace was getting closer. Commander Kethvar, despite every instinct screaming at him to flee deeper into the station, forced himself to stay on the bridge. "Dr. Vexthal, are you suggesting that humans are immune to fear?" "No, sir. They feel fear probably more intensely than we do. But their evolution taught them that running away from danger doesn't always work. Sometimes the danger is too big, too fast, or too widespread. Sometimes the only way to survive is to turn toward the threat and find a way to neutralize it. The revelation was staggering. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved on worlds that were dangerous but predictable. They had developed sophisticated fear responses because their ancestors who fled fastest lived longest. But humans had evolved on a world where running away might mean running into something even worse. Their ancestors had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and predators that hunted in coordinated groups. Flight wasn't always an option. Sometimes the only choice was to stand and fight, to adapt and overcome, to turn disasters into opportunities. The humans aboard Harmony weren't malfunctioning. They were working exactly as evolution had designed them to work. Asterisk, the gravitational anomaly reached critical intensity, just as the first massive object began to emerge from hyperspace. It wasn't a ship or a weapon. It was a rogue planet, somehow thrown out of its orbit in a distant system and now careening through space, its gravitational field dragging debris and smaller objects in its wake. The station's automated systems were failing. The orbital mechanics were too complex, the variables too numerous for standard computers to calculate escape trajectories. In 17 minutes, Harmony would be pulled into the rogue planet's gravity well, and everyone aboard would die. Commander Kethvar's prey animal instincts were screaming at him to abandon ship, to flee in the escape pods and hope for rescue. The Krolix were already sealing themselves into the deepest emergency shelters, preparing to wait out the catastrophe. The Veshans were huddled together, their stress pheromones creating a visible haze of despair. But the humans were doing something unprecedented. Elena had abandoned her laboratory and was now in the main computer core, running calculations that should have been impossible for a single person to perform. She was modeling the gravitational interactions between the rogue planet, the gas giant, and the station's position, looking for variables that the automated systems had missed. Tom was in the engine room, manually adjusting the station's orbit in ways that defied standard safety protocols. He was using the station's structural stress as a source of data, feeling the gravitational forces through the ship's hull and making adjustments by instinct and experience. I was coordinating between them, maintaining communication with the panicked crew while simultaneously monitoring the approach of the rogue planet. She had become the station's central nervous system, processing information and directing responses. "Commander," Elena called out, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "I've found something. The rogue planet's gravitational field is creating a resonance pattern with the gas giant's storms. If we can time our orbital adjustment to match the resonance frequency, we can use the gravitational interaction to slingshot us out of the danger zone." "That's impossible," replied Dr. Vex Thul. "The timing would have to be perfect to within milliseconds. No one could calculate that precisely." "Tom can," Elena said simply. "He's been feeling the gravitational changes through the station's hull. His brain is already calculating the adjustments instinctively." It was true. Tom Rodriguez, a human who had spent years working on oil rigs where one wrong move could kill everyone, was manually piloting a space station through a gravitational field that was reshaping local spacetime. His hands moved across the controls with a precision that seemed supernatural to the watching aliens. 15 seconds, Elena announced. "Tom, start the burn on my mark." The station rotated slowly, its orientation shifting to catch the gravitational current that Elena had calculated and Tom had felt. The hull groaned under stress that should have torn it apart, but the humans had found the one trajectory that would save them all. "Mark!" The engines fired, and Harmony shot away from the rogue planet like a stone from a slingshot. The gravitational forces that should have destroyed them instead launched them into a stable orbit around the gas giant, safe from the cosmic disaster that continued to unfold behind them. In the aftermath, as the alien crew slowly emerged from their shelters, They found the three humans calmly checking systems and ensuring everyone was safe. There was no celebration, no dramatic relief, just the quiet competence of people who had done what needed to be done. Dr. Vex Thol transmitted her final report to the Galactic Council. The humans are not just another species. They are what happens when intelligence evolves in constant crisis. They are the galaxy's natural first responders, the ones who run toward danger when everyone else runs away. They are what we might have become if our worlds had tried harder to kill us. The story of the Harmony incident spread throughout the galaxy, fundamentally changing how other species viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as reckless or dangerous. They were recognized as the species you wanted on your side. When everything went wrong, because while other species had evolved to survive, humans had evolved to save others. Asterisk.